It's Easter Sunday. In this video, we're going to talk about how the Easter Bunny and retirement have a lot in common. Welcome to Gen X Mindset. If you're new to the channel, my name is Greg. I'm a professional photographer. I also work in the film industry and do background and stand-in work, and I'm a former radio broadcaster and a Gen X elder who recently turned 60. And we're talking about retirement in this video. And also Easter. It's Easter Sunday. So let's harken back to when we were little Gen Xers in the 70s and 80s. You'd wake up and the Easter Bunny had brought you chocolate treats because you were well behaved, and you got to the rewards of being a good little child. And then we get a little older and we realize that was all bullshit, right? And now, as we get a little older as Gen Xers, we're starting to realize that maybe retirement might also be a bit of bullshit. We'll break that down in a minute, but a retirement and also the Easter Bunny do have a kind of origin stories that are similar. Both were started over in Germany. The Easter Bunny, I think, the 1800s or something like that. Retirement a little later in the 1800s. The Easter Bunny was to teach children to be good and expect rewards if they were good and well behaved. And I guess that's what, they did with retirement as well. It started with industrial workers, factory workers who were basically getting too old to do the work, exhausted and physically unable to do the work. So they decided to build in these retirement packages. And that kind of translated into modern society nowadays, much like our modern school system, at least we should say the school system that Gen X grew up in. The rows and the bells and the discipline, etc. We were basically being groomed to be factory workers, but not all of us followed that path, obviously, and things changed over the course of the 70s, 80s, 90s, and are continuously evolving. However, the retirement dream that I was kind of taught. Let's start with my parents. My parents were the silent generation. They were older. They had no concept of retirement. It was kind of before their time. They were brought up by people that worked nonstop. It was out of duty. It was survival. It was, let's have lots of kids that can take our roles over. That was their retirement. Have kids that can take over the farm or the family business to keep it going. That's when those parents were kind of retiring. Or in the case of my parents, they worked until they were 80 years old. Both of them lived until they were 82 years old, but they worked as long as they physically could show up on the job site. And they were self-employed. My mom worked for my brother's company before it got bought, and then she still worked for that company up until she was 80 years old. And then they retired her. They said, "Joyce, we appreciate it, but just, you need to go rest." And 2 years later, she passed away. So I was never kind of instructed by them to think about retirement. They always wanted me to have something stable and be happy with what I chose. And in school, it was always about work your 40 years, get your degree, your diploma, find someone to marry, have children, and after a certain amount of time, you get to enjoy life when you're 65 years old, if you're physically able. I just didn't like that idea of waiting until I'm in my golden years to actually start living. My brother, on the other hand, he's a prime example of the opposite of everything that I have done in life. He did the exact opposite. He did that whole 40-year plan, and he just recently turned 65, finally able to retire. And he is currently on a lifelong dream vacation that he's been on for a while. Him and his wife, they're celebrating his 65th birthday. They're 40 years of being married. So they've had this dream of going over to Egypt. They did Morocco first. They're in Egypt now. Then they're going to Europe. Think about what's going on in the world right now. I mean, they couldn't have predicted that when they came up with this dream, but I would be so effing scared of anything over in, overseas, closer to the zone over there. So, God bless them. I hope they do well. And, I think he's done great with his plan. I mean, he said, been married 40 years. grandparents. They are grandparents. He's got three kids, and they are all doing really well. He's living the textbook dream. Retirement, however, he's on several medications for high blood pressure, etc. His knees are shot from being on his feet for long periods of time. So physically, he's struggling a little bit. So but he did it. He had a plan and he followed through. Me, on the other hand, I'm a 60-year-old, never married, no children. Um, kind of went into the creative aspects. I wanted to build a life. I always believed firsthand. I was taught at a young age. What's the expression? If you do something you love, you'll never work a day in your life. Well, I eventually found myself in the radio industry, and I loved it. And I thought I'd be in that industry for the rest of my life. But automation, computers, technology, and just the internet started taking ad revenue from radio stations. If you look at what's going on in radio right now, it's abysmal. Like stations are closing all over the place. So then I started working in the film industry, doing background and stand-in. And I thought, the film industry, I could do this till I'm 80, be a background performer or stand in for a movie star. It's no problem. Film industry, dying quickly. So here I am. I just turned 60 and I applied for CPP. There's lots of videos out there telling you when you should apply and the benefits for and against applying. But you know what? I applied. I could use the money. For myself, I had worked so much in my self-employment and just gig economies, and I didn't maximize my CPP payments. My payment every month now is roughly $500 a month. It's $500 a month that I could definitely use right now. And the other part of the equation, do we really know what the world's going to be like in 5 more years? Think 2031. We've heard the year 2030 bantered around a lot. I live in Canada. There's a lot going on in Canada, especially this summer with negotiations. And we've got a province that might just bugger off. They might just say we're done with this. We'll find out more in October. So I just looked at the world and my country and said, I'm not sure what's going to be happening. So I opted to take my retirement, my CPP retirement. I'm not done working. I still do part-time jobs to make ends meet between photo gigs and the occasional film gig, but I'm still rejuvenated for broadcasting. But the world that we live in now has also given great opportunities for people with imaginations and creative abilities. Look at this channel right now, YouTube. I can broadcast at any time and talk about what I want, get feedback, build an audience, build community within this network with just a cell phone and a nice sweater and a face for radio. But that's what I guess really excited about, why I'm not done with work, because this isn't work. This is what I love doing. It's communicating. It's being starting discussions and speaking what's on my mind, which I loved about radio. I loved the fact that in radio I didn't have to be seen, but this is pulling me out of my shell a little bit. There's other options for creativity. Podcasts, I have no interest in doing a podcast. I'll be on a podcast. I'm a published author as well. And, I'm proud of that work. So there's so much creative work nowadays. Obviously, a lot of it is tough to monetize. It's a long game. But, for those facing the potential of retiring, as us Gen Xers are hitting that age, you youngers that were born around, mid 70s to the 80s, you're going to wait a few more years. But I'm curious, do you want to retire? Can you retire financially? Or what are your plans? I've talked to people that are like, I don't know what I'm going to do when I retire. So now's this time to start thinking about that on this Easter Sunday. So I will say one thing about this video. All right, we talked about how the Easter Bunny and retirement were kind of they came about. Their origins were in Germany. There's an Easter egg in this video, and I wonder if you can find it. Let me know in the comments. Let me know if you're ready for retirement, what your plans are, and let's just start a discussion. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them as well. Like and subscribe, the usual stuff, and stay tuned for lots more shoebox of fuzzy memory stories and just nostalgia, the concerts I've been to, my radio days, and film stories from behind the camera, behind the scenes. I've got lots of those to share with you as well. This is Gen X Mindset. My name's Greg. Have a happy Easter.